Thank you so much. And the event is over. And congratulations again on another very successful, very rich discussions. And it was my first time to participate, and that was very surprising in many ways, but in a very good way for me. So congratulations.
Thank you.
The theme for this year was the moment of truth. How this came about?
Well, same time last year when the previous conference finished, and the theme then was, do we dare to hope? We thought, what comes after hope? And we looked at what was happening in the world in 2024, what was planning to be happening. And with all these elections of half of the world's population going to the polls, and the AI discussions reaching a pivot point, we felt that the elections issue, the AI issue, that's going to produce interesting results, and it is going to be a moment of truth because of where AI is sitting in terms of the discussion about ethics, and where elections are sitting, and the fact, that 1 in 5 of the elections have been contested, the results have been uncertain. So truth and trust is kind of battered. And we felt that we needed to shine a spotlight on this and try and find ways of how we can go about restoring truth and trust.
I see.
But of course, back then, we didn't know that this war in Gaza was going to start and that the Middle East situation was going to escalate. So of course, this gives, and in recent days, as we've seen, it has reached another alarming dimension. With no end in sight, and that's really, really alarming. So the wars that are going around in the Middle East, in Ukraine, in Africa, that are going mostly unnoticed or unreported in comparison, these wars are also a moment of truth for us as a humanity and as a society.
I see. During the panel the last 3 days, I witnessed that we had different speakers from around the world, very with different backgrounds. Many topics were covered: AI, climate change, migration, and AI, and also war in the Middle East. What personally stood for you throughout the 3 days, the events? What was more interesting, or you found it important?
Look, what stood out for me was definitely the panel that we did on the Middle East, the fact that we had pro-Palestinian voices, pro-Israeli voices on that panel. It just honed in the point of how complicated the situation in the Middle East is. The AI and elections panel was great. Of course, one of my favorites is we do the Socrates Confucius dialogue, and this year we had the Aristotle Confucius dialogue with Jeffrey Sachs and Professor Wang from Beijing. So it's, again, interesting to listen to alternative points of view, as we did listen to Jordan Bardella, who was interviewed by and in conversation with Roger Cohen. The philosophy of the forum is that we are a journalistic endeavor, and in the name of democracy, and we bring adversarial points of view. We bring those we agree with, but it's important to bring the people you disagree with in order to have a conversation and a dialogue with them. Because if you don't do that, and you try and quarantine them in this far-right bubble, that bubble is going to burst. And the reality is that a significant portion of the population goes and votes for these extremes. So we need to bring them to the table, bring them on stage, and try and decodify the way they're thinking, try and understand. And that will help democracy evolve, really, by understanding those opposing points of view. That's what democracy is about. You need to bring the Chinese, you need to bring the far right, the far left, and not just to create an echo chamber of liberal democratic views. We know what they are. We need to, move democracy to the next phase. So that's why it was a very rich program and a very diverse program.
As you mentioned, it's all to have a democracy. You have to bring different people with diverse backgrounds, and you have managed it as someone who was behind all these amazingly to bring all these people. I wonder personally, and I see that you have a lot of responsibility. I wonder how do you translate that responsibility personally for yourself? What does that mean exactly for you?
By bringing the diversity.
Yes.
You know, it means that it will, I will constantly refine my points of view. Things happen. The world changes. Technology is moving so fast.
Yeah.
So you can't hold on something that worked in the 90s, for example, and liberal democracy served us really well. But that model of liberal democracy, I believe, no longer works in a world that we're entering, which is a world of AI and quantum computing.
Yeah.
So by listening to diverse points of view, you adjust your thinking, you move with the times, you evolve. And that's why I do that.
Yeah.
I like to speak and you know, have dinner with people I strongly disagree with, because that will help me solidify my beliefs, but it will also help me move the needle a bit in my own thinking.
Yeah. So what's next?
What's next? Should I break a surprise here? But you know, one of the big things that has been coming out of the last few years of work that we've been doing with this forum is if there's two pillars of democracy, it's education
Yes.
on the one hand, justice
Yes. Yes.
on the other hand. The education one is even more important because everything is about having educated citizens. There is a Greek word called pedia, and that's what that's what I mean when I talk about education. What is pedia? Pedia is education with virtue, education with culture. We are the Democracy and Culture Foundation. We believe that democracy is culture. I think next year, moving away from the moment of truth, what comes next? Maybe culture, maybe education comes next. But we will gather with our colleagues, we will listen to what our delegates and speakers have said over the next couple of weeks, and we will come up with a theme for next year.
Amazing. Congratulations, sir. And thank you so
very
much for what you
Thank
do.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.